when it comes to the media, one angle I've tried to push since I crossed over from being an employee to an employer. But we think about whatever we do as a product. If Dangote could say that with what he knows now, if he knew it before he started the refinery, he would not have done it. There's a difference, of course, between news and other things, but you can actually commercialize every other thing you do to keep on holding government accountable, to keep on driving development in the society.
Now we'll go to Ms. Agoawike to talk about one. A lot of our content right now and a lot of the audience we deal with is audio and visual first. And that's why you see a lot of content created on social networks have to be reformatted. Even the stories we write have to be repackaged. However, she is in a broadcast sector, and she naturally immediately creates such kind of content. So what lessons can you share from that? And how is that also translated to digital at the same time? And then, of course, revenue and business.
Okay, thank you very much, Deji. And thank you, colleagues on this part of the table. Let me just say that when Azu talked about the Daily Times, I was like, you are looking at a proud product of the Daily Times. Can you hear me now? Yeah. Okay, that you're looking at a proud product of the old Daily Times, not the Daily Times you have now. And of course, then there were so many publications, and they were all bringing in money. And I don't think Daily Times lacked in terms of pay salaries, but that was then. This is now. And one thing I've come to believe, making the transition from print to electronic, is the fact that you can actually be a great journalist without being a successful journalist. Because at the end of the day, success translates to you being able. Success translates to you being able to meet your basic needs, to meet your family's needs. So no matter the great stories you write, no matter the great content you produce, if you're not able to translate that into what can take care of you at the end of the day, I think there's a limit. People will no longer recognize you as a great journalist. But let me also say this, when it comes to the media, one angle I've tried to push since I crossed over from being an employee to an employer is the fact that the media actually plays three roles in our society. One is constitutional, which is there. We hold government accountable. The other one is being playing a social role. But to do those two, you have to actually succeed as a business. And that's where it comes in. The media is a business. If you fail as a business, you cannot do those other two effectively. So the first thing we try to do, or we should try to do as media owners, is to ensure that we look for ways to ensure that we succeed. Because if we succeed, then we can play the other two roles effectively. You cannot police somebody who is the one giving you money. Since we started work, since we started broadcasting, what people always ask us is, have you met the governor? Have you met the governor? You know, without government, you will not really do much. And we're like, okay, what if we meet the governor and he leaves tomorrow? Then we start trying to, instead of building a base, it might take time. And that's what I'm going to say to Pinnacle. It takes time. When I walked in here, as we talked about our earlier discussion, I told him, I said, look, if Dangote could say that with what he knows now, if he knew it before he started the refinery, he would not have done it. I said, then who am I not to say that? From what I know now, if I knew it before, I won't go into radio. But if you are in it already, you have that responsibility to succeed, because you've brought together young men and women who are just starting out in life, and you can't just bring them and let them hanging. So the first thing you do is look for ways to create income streams for your organization to make sure that every month you cover your costs and you are able to pay salary. If you do those things, it might take a while before you begin to build a stash of cash, but at least you are in operation, you're existing. And my colleagues on this side have talked about, I think Moji just talked about native advertising. I think I relate that to advertorials. We do a lot of advertorials. So long as you are transparent, you are open, you say it there that this content is sponsored. This is an advertorial, whether it's in print or electronic. If you're broadcasting it, let your listener, let your reader know that this is a paid content. It's not an investigated content. That way, you are able to have your credibility still intact. Nobody will say, "Oh, you are kowtowing to this side," so that they can give you money. And another thing I would like to say is this: there are short-term measures that we can adopt. There are also long-term measures, mid-term measures. Maybe part of the short-term measure, mid-term measure could also be looking out for grants. Grant is not a loan. It's an avenue that you can get money, at least to build up a foundation of what you're doing. Then from there, you can actually branch out to look for other ways to make money. And they do exist. As media people, I mean, I grew up in my media journey with the Daily Times completely. Daily Times before I tried other media organizations before I left and then stepped back again. But the thing is this, even the adverts that you get, if you get them through the advert agencies, I don't know how many of us here who worked with print media, even electronic. How many months, how many years does it take you to get your money? Meanwhile, this is an advert that you've run. You've consumed airtime, newsprint, and all the rest of them. Somebody is holding on to your money. So why not turn yourself also into an advert agency? Why not find a way to register with AppCon, outdoor advertising? Then you get the adverts yourself and you run it and you collect your money. That's one way that you can also make money to run your organization. Especially for Pinnacle that is starting, you can learn from some of the mistakes, some of the missteps that we have made and start better. I'm not sure there's so much. Yeah, well, there is a difference between online publication and broadcast like radio. There is, but there's quite a lot of to get similarities between them, right? People are listening to you, people are seeing you, people are reading you. One of the things we've tried to do at Omalicha too is it takes money, but we did it from the beginning. Live stream our product when we are on air, once we open, wherever you are, all over the world, you can hear us. So we're not restricted if you want to give us adverts. You will not say, oh, because you're somewhere in a way, because you're somewhere in a Zarele, people, we can't give you. Wherever you are, in your bedroom, any part of the world, once we open, you can listen to us and follow what we do. And that way, you can also get some adverts, get some endorsements. People want to do things, they want to collaborate with you. And for them to do that, you also have to understand that you have to give them great content. They introduced me as his longtime friend, but I have to say that friendship actually transformed the way I think about media. Luckily, we were just like 3 months old before we had an encounter with Nami. And what Nami did for us at the beginning, it was like it turned our thinking 360 degrees. We no longer just think about maybe programs on air, somebody going on air to do something or write to put on our website, but we think about whatever we do as a product we're selling. You have to understand that your platform is your business and you're there to make money. There's a difference, of course, between news and other things, but you can actually commercialize every other thing you do. Let those who consume them pay something for that to enable you continue to serve them. Because just once is not enough. If you do it once and get it right, it's not enough. It needs to be sustainable so that you also have that avenue to keep on serving, to keep on holding government accountable, to keep on driving development in the society. And let me say that before I sign off on this at this point of my intervention, you need to define your niche once you enter into the media business. You need to define who you are. Yes, we've always had a general interest and all the rest of them, but today, when there are so many ways people get exactly what they are looking for, you need to define what do you stand for. Some like in Imo State, for instance, I'm here, yes, but my radio station is in a way. If you go into that tiny city, you have more than 20 radio stations. And I think that's being conservative because almost on a daily basis, they keep coming up. And you're all fighting for the same market, which means you have to think outside the box. Think about something you can do, you can offer that the other stations are not offering. If they're all heavy on politics, then why do you have to also be heavy on politics, except you have an angle to it that will attract people? Otherwise, like I tell my people, if you're doing the same thing every other broadcast station, every other media is doing, why should I leave the one I know and come to you? You will need to be in a position to offer me something different. So I'm hoping that Pinnacle is ready to offer us something different from what Premium Times is offering us, from what cable cable oh, cable is offering us. If you are in radio, you are ready to offer something different from what Omalicha is offering to his listeners. If you're on television, you have to offer something different from what AIT is offering. So I think I'd like to stop there, and hopefully there will be other opportunities for intervention.
Thank you.